Welcome back to lecture 5 of Introduction to Programming. I had promised some time back that I will do the dissection. I'll explain each and every portion of what in the C program, hash include, return 0 and all of these. So that is there in the last video. So please even watch the videos that were uploaded offline, and for that I think if you subscribe to the channel, all of those details will be available. You set your notifications so that you immediately know when the video is uploaded. So today let's talk about type aliasing mechanism. So this is a new thing. So enum is the keyword. It stands for enumeration. This is the name of the type alias that gets created. So essentially I am saying is that weekday underscore t as a type will have these values. Why they are in all caps? It is a convention. It does not have to be in all caps, but it is a convention that if you are using enumeration, you use the enumerated constants in all caps. So the reason why I am calling it a type alias, because behind the scene it is just int. There is absolutely no difference. For example, I can do okay, and now I can declare a variable of type weekday, and as I said that this is just behind the scene, it is just int. So since it is a int behind the scene, you can just use what you do for int. So it's going to be %d, and we will print wc. I have to do this, and now I think it should work fine. Yeah. And now if I run this, so okay, this is strange. It says that weekday is 0 and color is 2. But here in the weekday I have mentioned that weekday is Monday and the color is blue. So what happens behind the scene is that when you put constants like this in an enumeration, by default it will assign values. So it will always start with 0. So Monday is 0, Tuesday is 1, Wednesday is 2, Thursday is 3, this is 4, Saturday is 5, Sunday is 6. Similarly, red is 0, green is 1, blue is 2, and indigo is 3. So that is why it said that color is 2, weekday is 0. Now what I can also do is this. Now see, certainly it does not make sense that you want to add a weekday to a color. This is not only perfectly valid. So now it said that weekday is 3 and color is 2. So why weekday is 3? Because you see that indigo is 3 and Monday is 0. So instead of Monday, if I do Friday, then it's going to be 4 plus 3, 7. So now you might wonder that what's the point of all of this? Why can't I use normal int? Essentially behind the scene it is just using int. So enum and typedef are there to increase the readability of the program. So when you write a program, it should not be only about writing a correct program, but it should also be about writing a very aesthetically looking program, the program that are very easy to read. Because 6 months down the line, if you want to read back the same program and understand, just by reading the program, it should make sense. It should make sense not only to you, but it should make sense to the programmer who has not written this program. So for example, out there in the industry, when you go to companies, people work in the project, it is often the case that there are some programmers who write the program, they leave the company, now somebody else comes back. And so this skill is equally important of writing beautiful programs, writing very much readable programs. And that is why these constructs are there. So it makes sense that if you are really working with weekdays, then you create an enumerated type so that you know that these are the legal values. In fact, not only that. So for example, you see that W was Friday plus indigo was 7, but here it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the value over here are only from 0 to 6, and I could assign 7, and that is perfectly valid. In fact, I can also do this. So 3 cross 4 is 12. So it is just int. There is absolutely no difference when you do enum. but it is just that it makes things much more readable. Obviously it does not make sense when you do operations like these, when you do operations that are there in line 12. But if you are really dealing with, let's say, weekday or color, where you have only some small set of values and you want to convey this thing properly to another programmer, somebody else, and to yourself, to make the program more readable, so that is why you use constructs like this. So just assume that behind the scene it is just int. So the way you define it is int, and then you enum, you give the name, and then you specify the set. Now it also allows some flexibility. You can say that Wednesday is 10. So once the Wednesday becomes 10, then the Thursday will be 11, Friday will be 12, Saturday is 30, and Sunday is 14. So when you do not specify a number, it will always start with 0, but the moment you specify a number for one enumerated constant, all the following constant will be whatever the number for the previous one plus 1. So Thursday will be Wednesday plus 1, Friday will be Thursday plus 1, so on and so forth. So now if I do, let's say, Wednesday multiplied by indigo, so it's 10 cross 3 is the weekday and color is 2, right? So I'm hoping that you understand it is not really a new type. Behind the scene, when you define this enum, it is just an int. Okay, so now I think let's talk about another. So we have already talked about branching, we have talked about if, then, else, etc. So now let's talk about another branching construct called a switch. So you say that I want to switch on W, and it has cases. So I think I'll write first and then I'll explain that what does it mean. And yeah, similarly I have to change here Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Now Saturday is not a weekday, we will say it is a weekend. If you consider Friday to be weekend as well, that's fine, but because Friday are usually working day, we can just call it a weekday. Okay, I forgot. Okay, so now you see that here W is Wednesday, and let me just run. So it said that are we on Earth, because there is no Wednesday here. Right, so what happens is that it's going to take this variable, it is going to compare with these constants. So there are few rules. So for example, variable in a switch has to have an integral type. So if you try to do something like this for a float, it is not going to work. So integral type means char, int, unsigned, all of these are integral types, long, but things like float or complex, they are not integral, or double, they are not integral types. Okay. So there is no Wednesday, but now let me just add a Wednesday over here. Okay, so now, so what it did is so it did not print Monday and Tuesday. It directly started with Wednesday, Thursday is a weekday, Friday is a weekday, etc. So let's see that how does the control flow over here. So what happens is that it's going to take the value of this integral variable and then jump to a case which matches with this value. So for example, W is a Wednesday, so the control immediately comes over here on line number 21, and then it is going to print this, and from then on, so because you have come here, then it will fall through. So then this also will be executed, line 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and then you come over here. Okay, so this is not very helpful. So if we just want to talk about that, it should just print Wednesday. So W is a Wednesday, I just want to know that whether W is a weekday or not, right? So then what you can do, there is another keyword, it is called a break. You can actually put it in a new line as well. So now let's see. So now what had happened is that it said, okay, just printed Wednesday is a weekday, and then whatever the earlier print statement was. So it jumped over here, it printed this, and then you said break. So what break is going to do is that it is going to transfer control at the end of the switch statement. So you will come here on line 34, essentially at the end of the switch. Okay, if there is no break, so for example, for Wednesday, I remove the break, then what's going to happen is that it's going to fall through, and then there will be break. Right, so it printed for Wednesday and Thursday. So you see that it printed Wednesday, but since there is no break, it went on, it fell through and printed this, and now there is a break. So the moment break was encountered in the scope of switch, it is going to transfer the control at the end of the switch. So the switch as a statement is over, moment break is encountered. Now what is this default? So default is that when the value over here for this integral variable, I cannot stress this enough, for integral variable, If none of these values that are mentioned in this case matches, then it is going to, the control will come over here at default, and then it will do whatever this is. So, for example, right. So, since we know that number 10, okay, 10 is a legitimate value now, I will just write 30. You remember that why I said 10 is a legitimate value, because we have already assigned Wednesday is 10. So, Thursday 11, Friday is 12, etc. So, all of these are going to. So, now if W is 30, it is not going to match with any of these. So, these syntax are important. So, it is case and then space, then the constant. So, all of these have to be constant. You cannot write something like this. So, this is a variable. So, you can't say that whether W is equal to C or not. This is not allowed. The only thing that should be there is a constant. If I think try to do this, right. So, it says that case label does not reduce to an integer constant. So, it has to be a constant. And now you see that because W is 30 here at excuse me, at line 12, the control is immediately going to come over here and it will say that are we on earth, because this is not a legitimate weekday. Right. So, I hope that with respect to switch, you have understood these things. So, it has to be an integral type. So, let me just try to create a float, and let us see, can I do it on float? And now you see that it is giving me an error that switch quantity is not an integer. It has to be an integral constant. So, you can use long, you can use long, you can use unsigned, short, char, these are all fine, even bool. So, these are all integral constant, but what is not allowed is that you can't use a non-integral type variable. So, we will see that later on you can create your own types, even those are not allowed. The only thing that you are allowed are these integral types. Okay. So, and I think it gave an error for this one as well, right. So, now if you remember in the video that was uploaded, I had mentioned about conditional compilation. So, I can also do this. So, you can say hash if and then some condition. So, I just write 0. So, that means that the condition is false, and hash end if. So, what the preprocessor is going to do is that this thing is going to be removed, the preprocessor is going to remove. So, this is another way you can completely take out some piece of code from your program. So, it is not going to be fed to the compiler. So, now if you see that now it will compile fine, because this effectively between this if 0 and end if, it is not even present. Now the reason why this is important, so let me talk about nested comment as well. So you know that this is a block comment. So imagine that you have done something like this, but you cannot nest these comment. So if you have already commented out something, and now these block comments are especially useful to describe what your function does. So for example, act as and imagine that now a huge block of code you just want to sort of comment out, you cannot nest it, because one block comment inside another block comment is not possible. What has happened is that this star followed by slash ended the comment that started over here. So now the compiler is going to complain. But what you can do, because this is done by the processor, so processor is going to completely remove this thing. It won't go to the I think there is something yeah, okay, right. So we have talked about this switch statement. Now you see that these cases are labels over here, and it can be in any order. It does not have to be in the same order that I have specified. So for example, I can say Saturday is here. This is perfectly fine, this is allowed. And now if I write Saturday, and now let me just remove this break statement for a while, then what's going to happen is it said Saturday is a weekend and then Monday is a weekday. So I hope you understand, essentially it came here, it jumped to this label, it executed this part, and since there is no break was commented out, the control followed through, so it just printed this one and then there was a break. My guess is that even default, it is just another label, it does not have to be I think let us see whether it has to be last or not. Okay, I think the default has to be last, but let us see. No, it does not have to be. So now what if I do this? Okay, so it said Sunday is are we on earth, and then it talked about this Sunday is part of a weekend. So what has happened is it came over here because value did not match with any of the constants, and then it fell through over here. Now even though this is allowed, let me warn you that this is not something that should be done. So default, since you know default means that when it does not match with any of this thing, you go to the default case, and that is why for the readability of the code, it is always a good idea to keep the default at the end. Right, if you put default somewhere in between, it makes it difficult to read. I mean, for a program, as I said, that as a programmer, if you want to become a good programmer, you should cultivate the habit of reading code. So just by reading the code, you should be able to understand what the code is doing, and the constructs like these make it very difficult as to what this code is doing. In fact, there are like other weird things also that is legal, but you should never do it. So, for example, I don't know, let's check. So, see, this is legal because these cases are just, it says that jump wherever this label is. So, it is going to come here, and then it is going to check that if this is red. If this is not red, it is going to omit this part. So, see, for example, in a normal case, what happens is, if I say, let me just again go back. So, what I will do is that I will change this to Wednesday. For a moment, ignore that there is an if statement, then what will happen? It will jump over here, it will print this, there is no break. So, it will fall through. It should print that if this is a Thursday and then break. So, let us just but now there is a condition, if C is equal to red, and since C is not equal to red, C is blue, it will not print that this is a Thursday. Right. So, it said Friday is a, so it said Wednesday is a weekday. Now, why did it print Friday is a weekday? Because even the break statement was inside this if. So, the control came here, this was false. So, it came at the end of if, and then it printed Friday is a weekday. So, this is legal in C, but should never ever be done. In fact, there is a standard coding standard. So, just like as I said, right. So, these standards are the ones that define the language. Similarly, there is a standard called MISRA standard. It stands for Motor Industry Safety something. So, that means that if you are writing a code that can potentially go inside a car, I am not talking about autonomous car, even our regular car these days have a lot of code that goes inside these cars. So, as per the rules of these MISRA standard, things like these are not allowed. You should not do this kind of mix and match. But I showed you that this is a very ugly code that can be written. Even though it is legal in C, it should never be done. So, for example, during your assignment, etc., if you try to do it like this, you will be penalized, because the programming is not only about writing code that works. It should also be about writing code that is maintainable, writing a code that is readable, because I mean, it might work today, but in the maintenance phase somebody else might come, things might change, this code can easily break. Okay, so this was just for the sake of completeness. So, now let me see, are there any questions? Okay, why do we use underscore t? It is just a convention, you don't have to write, but since I wanted to indicate that this color is a type, right? So since it is an identifier, I want to distinguish between what is a variable and what is a type. So this is a conventional, not only I use, there are many other people that use this convention. In fact, even inside the C standard, you would have seen that size underscore t is a type in C. So color underscore t is underscore t you add whenever something indicates a type. Okay, so what if we use Sunday indigo 63? I did not understand this question. Indigo edition in parenthesis, yeah. So you can't use parenthesis in. So this is a indigo is just a, think of it just like an integer, right? So if you try to do this indigo something, so this is allowed, this is perfectly fine, but you can't write something like this, right? This parenthesis is going to be a syntax error because this is an integer. So if I do this, right, it says that it is not a function, it is look like function, but this is a int. So for all practical purpose enum are int. Okay, can't we get Monday or blue instead of numbers? Okay, so my guess is that what you want is string, and the thing is that so we'll discuss about arrays and then I'll talk about strings. So strings typically require multiple bytes and the processing of strings are much slower as compared to processing of integers, because inside your processing chip there are native instructions, there is arithmetic you can immediately do on int, but string is a very roundabout way. So if you want to print the weekday, the only way you can do is that if it is Monday, then you can say Monday like this. So that I hope that makes sense, that here it is an integer, but now if you want to print that it is indeed a Monday, you do it like this. So this is given just to make it readable, make your program readable. So behind the scene everything, all of these enumerations are just, they behave like int. Think about like this, they exactly behave like int. In C++, in the modern C++, these are actually different types. So different enumerations are different type. So you cannot assign let's say blue to W, which is of type weekday, so you cannot assign blue over here, and that makes sense. So different programming languages have their own strength. So things like this, why C++ not allowing things like this makes C++ type system in some sense better, that it does not allow. So the intention of a type system is to help programmers write correct programs, and C++ type system that way is better in the sense that it tries to distinguish between these two. So if the program, as a programmer, your intent is that let's say this is a different type and this is a different type, it should not allow you to do all of this mix and match. So in the modern C++, these are not compatible, but in C this is legal. So I hope answered your question, that if you want to actually print this, the only way you can do is you do this switch case statement and then you actually print Monday, etc. Okay, when we assign wed is equal to 10, then Tuesday will still be 1, no, Tuesday will be 11. So Tuesday is still 1, because Tuesday comes before Wednesday. So in fact let me just let me create another weekday, or I can just, because you wanted to know what is Tuesday, so I'll write it over here. So what is the int value for Tuesday that has been assigned by this? Okay. Right, so Tuesday is still 1. That's something that follows. So and it's not only that you can only give one of these guys. So I can say, so this is 0, this is 1, this is 10, this is 11, and now I can change this. I can say this is let's say 34. So then Saturday will be 35, Sunday will be 36, right? So let's just write Saturday. Right, so Saturday is 35. But I think what will not be allowed, let me just because there are many things that C++ does not allow and C allows. What will not be allowed is are assigning the same value to this different thing. I think that this it will not allow, hopefully, right? So it said that it's a so enumeration is allowed. I think it had a problem in the switch case. So both Wednesday and Thursday are 10. I think that is allowed in C. But here, because the switch case, so these two labels translates to labels, and these the labels have to be different. So if I comment one of that out, then C will not have any problem. Yeah. So you can assign the same numbers to different enumerated constants, so that is fine, but then you cannot use it in the switch case. And typically enumeration and switch case statements, they are used, you want to do enumeration because maybe you want to do switch case and things like that. And again, it is not about what is legal. There are a lot of things that is legal in C. That does not mean that you should do it, right? So this is a bad programming practice, giving the same constant value to sort of different these enumerated thing, right? So these are the things that are bad programming practice, should be avoided. What's the use of enum? Well, the use of enum, as I said, to increase readability. So if you use it correctly, it will increase the readability of the program. So let's say day of the week, if you want to use certain kinds of colors, if you are doing game programming and you want to use for colors, that okay, this is a color, so that later on, you see, any non-trivial project will have multiple files, etc. You are looking somewhere line number 2000 something, and if it says red, you know that okay, it is still an integer behind the scene, but at least you know that okay, you know what, in my game the background color is red, instead of using some number like 2 or 3. As a programmer, it makes it very difficult. And the best kind of codes are the code that even without the comment are readable. That means that you just understand. So if it is red, you immediately know that okay, it signifies color in my program. But if you instead write 2 or 3 or some such number, you will not understand what does this 2 stand for. So that is the whole purpose, that it increases readability to a great extent. Use of switch, okay. So So what is the use of switch? I think I have mentioned. So it transfers control like this, but so typically what happens is, in fact, let me show you. So the reason why it does this integral type, because it will prepare a jump table. So it will do this comparison and control will immediately go over there. So as I said, first of all, the thing is that this fall through is allowed. So this if else is not the same, right? A is equal to 1, A is equal to 2, for example. I hope that you are able to see this example. Let's say that you read A, and then if you do all of this, this is not same as switch case, because switch case allows fall through. Whereas here, if A is equal to 1, it is just going to print this, and then the control will come at the end of this if else thing at line 16 here. But switch case allows this fall through. So it is a different kind of control flow. It allows you different kind of control flow. That is one. And second thing is that, let me see here, I haven't written. So what it does is it prepares a jump table. So let me quickly write. So I think I can write this enum thing over here as well. So let's say enum, I'll just write color. RBG, let me, and I can specify the variable directly here itself. So this is also fine, instead of doing it in separate lines. So and none of this is mandatory, like default etc. is also not mandatory over here. Okay, so here you can see this thing in action. So this is main, this is the assembly of the program. So in fact, yeah, let me just print here so that I know. Okay, so this is the main and this is the call to this printf. So it is this printf on line 6. It did a bunch of things, and I think after that print, now if you see, if you try taking a look at this, so it prepares a jump table. So the way it is handled behind the scene, many times it is different if you, instead of this if else. So what it did is that, yeah, it compared it this with 0, and then it says that jump at this location, otherwise you compare with this 1, and then you jump to this location. And what is this location? So it is 401143, which is here, right? It came over here. 4011, where is it? (1153). So it comes over here, and yeah, then it does a bunch of things, and then it prints. Similarly, 401162 should be target of the other guy. It's 401164. Yeah. So which it will come here, and again it will print that this is blue. So this one, as you can see, that this is for this statement, right? So it prepares a jump table like this, which makes the transfer of this control and doing other things. Sometimes depending upon what values are there, it just have to jump to a given offset in a particular program location. So those kind of things may not be possible if it is a general if conditions, which will allow the float values, which will allow any arbitrary logical and logical or and all of these things. So yeah, I think is switch statement really necessary in C in a programming language? No, it is just makes two things. It is a more of a implementation related details might differ here and there little bit, and yeah, it is just yet another construct for the programmer to control the way the program control goes from one place to another. So to manipulate control, but certainly even if I, let's say, take away switch statement tomorrow, you can accomplish the same thing just using if then else. You might have to just play around a little bit here and there, but you can accomplish exactly the same thing logically using the if then else. It's just that many times the switch case statement is more efficient in terms of speed of the program. So the way compiler translates it. So yeah, I mean, as a branching, typically it is not necessary. Enable captions for video lecture. Well, that is not up to me. That is up to YouTube. So I think YouTube just samples the captions, etc. So for example, in the last video that was uploaded, YouTube automatically generated the closed captions. So if you enable that, then you will see captions. But so what is hash and if? As I said, that is a preprocessor directive. So and it has to match with the hash if. And again, you please watch the last video lecture that was uploaded. What does weekdays underscore t mean? Well, it is just another type alias for int that I am defining. So that's what it is. It's an enumeration thing, but it's not really a different type. As I said, that type in a very loose sense or informally, it's a set of values and set of operations. So behind the scene, it is just int. So a lot of things, if it was really a weekday, imagine that, let's say you want to create a type for weekday, then can you add Monday and Tuesday? No, things like this should not be allowed. Can you assign green to a weekday? No, that does not make sense. So that is why it is not creating this enum thing. It is not creating really a different type. It is just a type alias. It is just another name for an int. The sole purpose of this thing is to make program more readable. So the correct usage of enumeration will help improve readability of your program to a great extent. I think that we can maybe stop a little bit early today.